I never got a taste for the beluga either.
Yeah, champagne and caviar, yeah.
Great, super great
it's
champagne.
It's not overrated.
Now, wine was an awesome investment, but both my parents regret not buying more California land and real estate with their cash. My dad did buy our family a wonderful vacation home in Lake Tahoe, where I'd bring all my friends for weeks-long slumber parties. Me and Petunia from episode 1 built a mini golf course over several summers at our Tahoe house.
No, here, there. I think we should have bought land for cash, is what I think now, looking back on it,
Right.
Yeah.
Hindsight tells us that I was not clear back then that, much property actually can be bought directly for cash. Because lots of people own stuff.
Rural properties.
Right, rural properties or whatever. And
so that's okay.
we still made a ton of money on the wine.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was pretty decadent to drink champagne.
And eat triple O beluga?
Caviar, yeah. I mean, pretty
Didn't
much
prevent her from doing it.
No.
But we didn't do it that often. We were not that, every once in a while we'd do some. And we were never quite, and for me it was strictly an investment.
My parents don't think there's any sense to regret what they didn't invest in, or regret the ways they cleaned their cash, or dried it, as the case may be. I'm Rainbow Valentine, and this is Disorganized Crime, and we'll be right back.
I don't think America has ever gone back to the way that it was before 9/11 and the anthrax attack. The fear was really that there would be a second wave of attacks. And then along comes the DC sniper, and all of the country's worst fears are realized.
A man has been killed in front of me. I was shot. I don't know.
The gunman, most likely a skilled marksman, fired 6 times in the course of 16 hours.
They killed the 5 people in one day and then went on the rampage for the next month.
The police say they have never had a crime quite like this. It is quite a mystery.
It was scary to go to the grocery store or fill up your car with gas.
There was a white van just went by with 2 guys in it.
I do believe he was brainwashed, for lack of a better term.
As far as I'm concerned, he was a psychopathic, cold-blooded killer that can never walk the street again.
Listen to Monster, DC Sniper, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're headed towards the end of this episode, but before we get there, I want to talk about the tiniest currency that was the most important to my parents, and it turned out, to me. So a visceral kid memory this podcast has jostled is one of tons of quarters around our house all the time. They were in drawers, on countertops, and in every nook and cranny of all our cars.
And they were not only in the car, but they were in all the vehicles.
Yeah, there were a lot of quarters around.
We had 2 Chevys, right? 2 Chevy Impalas, and we had the big yellow truck. And so they were always in those because those were the working vehicles.
One summer, we rented a house in Stinson Beach, and my parents hired a neighbor girl to be my babysitter. I was probably 8. The beach house was down the street from a snack shack that sold forbidden junk food. So sensing light at the end of my junk food deprivation tunnel, I showed the babysitter the rolls of quarters located in my dad's car door side pockets, and we took a roll to buy frozen Snickers. A few weeks later, after the beach vacation, the neighbor babysitter was caught sneaking up our long, hilly dirt driveway and stealing rolls of quarters from my dad's car. I was so embarrassed that I had shown her where my dad's money was, and I was surprised she had stolen from our family. Later, as in, now, while producing this podcast, all these quarters in my life fall into place by learning the rolls of quarters were an important tool of the trade for my dad's business, because he made most of his important smuggling deals on payphones.
Before pagers, they'd call you at home and say, hey, man, why don't you, let's go to the office, I'll meet you at the office and we'll talk.
Oh, you called the payphones offices?
Yeah, I mean, it was an office,
It
right?
was an office.
So, I'll meet you at the Western office, I'll meet you, whatever thing.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Now, as a kid, I was deeply absorbed in my fantasy world and considered grown-up errands profoundly boring and barely tolerable. I was a drama queen child, and I couldn't fathom why my parents didn't have errand-running British servants like Mary Poppins, Jeeves, or Mr. Belvedere. Of course, the 70s and 80s were before the internet, so all errands had to be run in person, with the kids in tow. I have vivid memories of frequent trips to the bank, waiting in line, and chewing on the foamy vinyl ropes dividing the banking queues. I loved the spongy texture of the chunky bank cords, the only saving grace of what I considered the most boring errand on earth.
You always made your boredness known, one way or another.
I recall swinging on the cushiony ropes and remember my mom's mortification at my public animal behavior. Well, now I realize my parents needed to go to the bank a lot to get rolls of quarters for my dad's many payphone calls.
Getting quarters was a trip in a bank.
Tell us about that.
Well, I'm trying to think about it, because when you think about it, what do you need $1 million quarters for? You'd go in and buy $100 worth of, because each roll was $20 worth of quarters. So you'd buy 5 rolls, $100,
Did you have different banks? So they wouldn't suspect that you were, why was this person getting so many rolls of quarters all the time?
Well, when I would get quarters, I'd just go into a bank that didn't know me, that was somewhere else. I didn't walk into my Mill Valley Bank or my local. Yeah, and there were enough banks in the county to just pop in now and again.
Another common errand I loathed was my dad stopping for phone calls. We lived in a semi-rural area and drove a lot, as school and my many after-school activities were 15 to 50 minutes away from home. My chauffeur dad always had to stop for a call after gymnastics, tap dance, or play practice when I was tired and cranky and totally had to pee. Disgruntled, but surrounded by rolls of car quarters poised for the spotlight, I'd wait in the car and play pretend, turning the coins into anthropomorphic characters in my elaborate melodramas. Once, while waiting for my dad to make a call, I broke the car windshield by mistake.
Do you remember that time I mistakenly broke the windshield of the car?
With your feet up?
Yeah.
You just put your feet up and went blub.
Yeah. It cracked the whole front windshield.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So, basically, while I sat waiting in the car near my beloved McDonald's, I was in the front seat of our Jeep Cherokee, and I put my bare feet on the inner windshield, leaned back, and pressed/stretched out. Well, I stretched my legs a bit too firmly and, horrified, watched the entire windshield crack. It was a long 10 minutes waiting for my dad to return from the payphone to the windshield I'd just destroyed. Also, it probably wasn't the best thing to do, bringing attention to my dad as he was making deals at the payphone. Now, my dad went to plenty of different offices, payphones, and his favorite was in Tam Junction near my childhood home. Tam Valley, adjacent to Mill Valley, is where I learned to ride a bike, drive a car, and its crossroads, Tam Junction, is the gateway to the windy road over Mount Tamalpais to Muir Woods, the famed national monument. Tam Valley used to be considered kind of like the slums of Mill Valley, with its hub, the scrudgy Shoreline Shopping Plaza, and the gaudy rug store flaunting a giant curved aqua-tile storefront that resembled a vertical swimming pool. So the Shoreline Shopping Center, where my dad's favorite payphone was located, consisted of the Calla Market, where we picked up last-minute groceries, the Shoreline Coffee Shop, and the Video Droid, my little brother's favorite place.
I just had a visceral memory of being left at the Video Droid a lot. Wow. You were probably on the phone, and we'd be at the Video Droid.
Because right around the Tam Junction thing right. there were several.
Like you'd leave us at Video Droid so we could look at videos, and you'd go make a phone call.
Yeah,
that happened all the time.
Now, other smuggling errands, which I enjoyed more because they involved snacks, included shopping at the cheese store, Jerry's Meat Market, Mill Valley Market, and the hippie health food store, Living Foods, where we'd get treats like frozen yogurt or tiger milk bars. Smugglers got to eat, and my parents are gourmet cooks. So I thought I remembered plastic-wrapped chunks of hash in the freezer alongside the frozen bagels, but my parents are adamant they wouldn't have left drugs in the freezer for me to eat by mistake.
Did you just have hash wrapped in plastic in the freezer? Like, all the time, right?
Hash wrapped in plastic in the freezer?
Yeah. No, there were always weird things in the freezer that were like little bricks of like brown things.
Might have been money.
Money?
Yeah, in bags.
In the freezer?
I mean, we didn't keep drugs in the freezer.
That is ridiculous. I have seen drugs in your freezer.
Really?
Yeah, but not, I mean, recently, pot brownies and stuff.
I wouldn't leave those around. You would have eaten them all.
Yeah.
I don't know what I saw, but my parents always have kind of weird things in the freezer. Like maybe old psychedelic mushrooms or an old withered pot brownie some old hippie left. You gotta be careful what you eat in my parents' freezer. Smuggling as a word sounds so intriguing and mysterious, and it's hilarious to realize that, in fact, the most boring activity of my childhood, running errands with my parents with plenty of quarters in tow, was actually part of a cinematically spine-tingling act. Smuggling. My parents should have been like, come on, let's go smuggling, rather than, let's go run errands, we gotta run errands, like, we gotta do smuggling. I probably would have been much more excited. A question we've gotten from some listeners is that if my dad was pulling in so much money doing these pot deals, why did he keep smuggling? Well, my dad was a freelancer, meaning he would win big, but then there would be months without work or income coming in. And life with 3 kids is expensive. I've paid my rent being a lifelong freelancer thanks to principles my freelancer dad drilled into me. And number 1 is, failure is, unfortunately, a frequent visitor. But on the bright side, you've got to know failure to know success. In the smuggling business, you need to spend money to make money. So cash was used to invest in another trip, to bring in more money, and so on and so forth. My dad's colleague, the driver, Sandwich, calls it chasing the rainbow. He told me the smuggling business was difficult to get out of because smugglers were continuously chasing the rainbow, with each new trip promising to bring in more money than ever before.
But also very much, I have boundaries about what I will or won't do in my life, even in making money, which is the most delicious ice cream I know. Money makes our world be free.
Making money drove my dad. Plus, I believe my parents are adrenaline junkies. They love river rafting, scuba diving, dancing, the rush from the extreme high of making $250,000 in a month. And that's some adrenaline. But the money went fast to support a family of 5 plus pets. My parents were set on sending us all to private schools and providing us with bounteous opportunities like sailing, skiing, singing lessons. Plus, my dad supported his family of origin on the East Coast. And my parents always needed enough money for smuggler's insurance, a retaining fee for the best criminal attorney on the West Coast.
I gave Bernie Siegel a $5,000 retainer and said, if I call, help.
Except for I remember that I was sitting on some money and it was $50,000.
You were sitting on $50,000?
Well, yeah, it was, yeah.
Of whose? What are you talking?
No, of our money, yeah.
Where was it?
It was in a piece of furniture that had a secret entrance.
What?
The safe?
Yeah, no.
Which?
The bed. Remember the bed we built?
No. Well, I remember the bed we built, but I don't remember.
It had hinges and you could open it.
Yeah, but everybody knew that. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, anyway, I remember that.
Money also disappeared because my dad was a tidbit overly generous. He's a staunch supporter of the arts and often gave away product and money to fellow artists. He was rolling in it.
I gave away lots of the product to our artist friends. How I viewed a whole bunch of that was the importance of the patronage for the artists and musicians, for me.
In my dad's business, money, pot, and trust were commodities. There were handshake deals, friendship, and an assurance that cash would flow when it needed to flow. Until it didn't. So the 80s roll around, and the Reagan administration starts changing the pot laws. Stakes are getting higher, but my parents continue business as usual, regardless of the danger. Because money is freedom.